For what reason are Americans so animated about medicinal services change? Explanations, for example, "Don't contact my Medicare," or "Everybody ought to approach best-in-class medicinal services regardless of cost," are, as I would see it, ignorant and instinctive reactions that demonstrate a poor comprehension of our social insurance framework's history, its present and future assets, and the financing difficulties that America faces going ahead. While we as a whole marvel how the social insurance framework has arrived at what some allude to as an emergency arrange, we should attempt to remove a portion of the feeling from the discussion by quickly looking at how medicinal services in this nation rose and how that has shaped our reasoning and culture about social insurance. With that as an establishment, we should take a gander at the upsides and downsides of the Obama Organization medicinal services change proposition, and how about we take a gander at the ideas set forth by the Republicans? Access to cutting-edge medicinal services administrations is something we would all be able to concur would be something beneficial for this nation. Encountering a genuine disease is one of life's significant difficulties, and to confront it without the way to pay for it is emphatically terrifying. Yet, as we will see, when we know the realities, we will find that accomplishing this objective won't be simple without our individual commitment. These are the subjects I will address to attempt to bode well out of what is befalling American social insurance and the means we can by take to improve things. An ongoing history of American social insurance: what has driven the expenses so high? Key components of the Obama social insurance plan. The Republican perspective on medicinal services: free market rivalry. All-inclusive access to best-in-class human services, a commendable objective yet difficult to accomplish. What would we be able to do? To begin with, we should get somewhat chronicled viewpoint on American human services. This isn't proposed to be a depleted investigate the history, yet it will give us a valuation for how the human services framework and our desires for it created. What drove costs increasingly elevated? To start, how about we go to the American Common War? In that war, dated strategies and the savagery perpetrated by present-day weapons of the period joined to cause horrendous outcomes. Not by and large known is that the greater part of the passings on the two sides of that war were not the consequence of real battle, but rather to what occurred after a war zone wound was perpetrated. In the first place, departure of the injured moved at an agonizingly slow clip, and this caused serious postponements in treating the injured. Besides, numerous injuries were exposed to wound consideration, related medical procedures, or potentially removals of the influenced appendages, and this regularly brought about the beginning of gigantic contamination. So you may endure a fight twisted distinctly incredible the hands of restorative consideration suppliers who, albeit good-natured, their mediations were regularly very deadly. High losses of life can likewise be credited to ordinary disorders and illnesses in when no antimicrobials existed. In all out, something like 600,000 passings happened from all causes, over 2% of the U.S. populace at the time. We should jump to the principal half of the 20th century for some extra point of view and to bring us up to progressively current occasions. After the Common War, there were relentless enhancements in American medication in both the comprehension and treatment of specific illnesses, new careful methods, and in doctor instruction and preparing. Be that as it may, generally as well as could be expected, offer their patients was a sit-back-and-watch approach. Prescription could deal with bone breaks and progressively endeavor unsafe medical procedures, presently to a great extent acted in clean careful conditions. However, medications were not yet accessible to deal with genuine diseases. Most of passings remained the after-effect of untreatable conditions, for example, tuberculosis, pneumonia, red fever and measles, and additionally related difficulties. Specialists were progressively mindful of heart and vascular conditions, and malignant growth, however they had nothing with which to treat these conditions. This essential audit of American restorative history encourages us to comprehend that until as of late, around the 1950s, we had for all intents and purposes no advancements with which to treat genuine or even minor sicknesses. Here is a basic point we have to see: nothing to treat you with implies that visits to the specialist, if at all, were consigned to crises, so in such a situation costs are shortened. The basic reality is that there was little for specialists to offer, and in this way, for all intents and purposes, nothing to drive social insurance spending. A subsequent factor holding down expenses was that restorative medications that were given were paid to out of pocket, which means by method for a people individual assets. There was nothing of the sort as medical coverage, and unquestionably not medical coverage paid by a business. Aside from the down and out who were fortunate to discover their way into a philanthropy clinic, human services costs were the obligation of the person. What does human services protection have to do with social insurance costs? Its effect on human services costs has been, and stays right up till today, totally colossal. At the point when medical coverage for people and families rose as a methods for enterprises to escape wage freezes and to pull in and hold representatives after World War II, practically medium-term an incredible pool of cash got accessible to pay for social insurance. Cash, because of the accessibility of billions of dollars from medical coverage pools, urged an inventive America to expand therapeutic research endeavors. More Americans became safeguarded through private, manager-supported medical coverage, yet through expanded government financing that made Medicare and Medicaid 1965. Moreover, subsidizing got accessible for extended veterans' human services benefits. Finding a remedy for nearly anything has therefore gotten exceptionally rewarding. This is additionally the essential purpose behind the huge range of medications we have accessible today. I don't wish to pass on that therapeutic developments are a terrible thing. Think about the huge number of lives that have been spared, broadened, upgraded and made progressively gainful accordingly. In any case, with a financing source developed to its present size, many billions of dollars every year, upward weight on social insurance costs are unavoidable. Specialists offer and the vast majority of us request and gain admittance to the most recent accessible medicinal services innovation as pharmaceuticals, restorative gadgets, indicative devices and surgeries. So the outcome is that there is more medicinal services to spend our cash on, and until as of late the majority of us were protected and the expenses were to a great extent secured by an outsider, government, businesses. Include an unquenchable and ridiculous open interest for access and treatment, and we have the immaculate tempest for ever more elevated medicinal services costs. Furthermore, all around the tempest is just increasing. Click the link in the description for more information.